Great. Okay. Right. Well, we'll get going. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Great to have you here. We do appreciate you taking time out of your day. We appreciate that you're obviously busy at the moment, dealing with different aspects of the situation right now. But we do appreciate you joining us this afternoon. I'd just like to introduce myself and my colleague first of all, before we get going. So my name is Ian Smith. I'm the EMEA Technical and Alliances Director here at Scale Computing. I also have on the call as well my colleague, Jaco Delport, who's the Regional Sales Manager for Middle East Africa. Jaco, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Hello, Ian. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thanks for the introductions, Ian.
Did I get your region right for a start?
Yeah. I think it's Middle East Africa, Italy, and Iberia.
Oh, there you go.
That's a little top part extra.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you for joining this afternoon. Right. Okay. So, business resilience. This is what we're here to talk about this afternoon. Let's dive straight in. So, what does business resilience mean? And I guess it's with any sort of description. Actually, it can mean many things to different people. But from our perspective, it's about the combination of proactive and reactive planning, especially around IT and infrastructure, and also around being able to deal with the unexpected, I suppose. And certainly, this is a great example of that, especially with COVID and so on. And so from that perspective, we're here to talk about the different aspects of that. Talk about cybersecurity, backup, disaster recovery. All those different elements go towards resiliency, but also all the aspects of infrastructure as well in IT. First of all, having an infrastructure that you could, that can be tailored to a particular situation, that can be, quickly redesigned or redeployed in some manner. And with what's going on at the moment, particularly with COVID, infrastructure reactivity. So, mass purchasing of laptops, for example, and we've seen this with a lot of our channel partners, where obviously at the very start of the COVID-19 situation, there was a large demand for laptops or end user hardware in general, actually, and how that was then managed. And then when we look at business resiliency, also implementing VDI or extending VDI, a lot of companies may have had some form of VDI infrastructure or implementation, but certainly would have had to look to extend that. And depends on the type of organisation, whether that be SMB businesses that would have possibly had some sort of remote access of some description, possibly just sort of simple RDP, through to corporate or larger organisations that would have had some VDI infrastructure. And then also going through, into operational innovation. So, how to manage that particular situation, how to manage the threats to the organisation as well, making sure that was already in place. Additional sort of high sort of level overview here. High availability and disaster recovery. So minimising downtime of applications, making sure those applications are up and running. Hopefully, you would have had some form of planning in place that would help guide you through that maze there around high availability and disaster recovery. So again, minimising the downtime of applications and also access to those applications. And work from anywhere. We've just touched upon VDI. We've touched upon maybe different access methods, whether that be direct RDP access, VPN access to resources. Cybersecurity, helping you adapt and hopefully react to potential data breaches and attacks, as whether that be antivirus, anti-malware, not only at the endpoint but also the server side as well. Traditional backup, so protecting your data, whether that long-term retention, and also part of your DR strategy, and also scalability as well. Touched upon the fact that having a flexible infrastructure, being able to react to the situation at hand as well. So obviously you might need to then grow your infrastructure based on demand, and obviously around VDI, remote access, for example. do you have an infrastructure that would allow you to then quickly deploy additional resources and so on. So looking forwards, I mean, in fact, we're well into the second half now of 2020. This year's flown by actually in some respects. Covering off how people are spending their budgets, and obviously CIOs have had lots of challenges with how to spend that sometimes limited resource, where to spend their investment on IT, how to prioritize, looking at making sure that obviously the applications are up, data is accessible, and so on. And we see that still continuing through to the rest or the end of 2020, where people are now looking to implement additional infrastructure to meet those uncertain demands. Business resilience planning, well, that's, again, it means lots of different things to different people, but also that a lot of the time you probably already think that you've already dealt with this and you've already got this in hand. But I think there's a key difference between business resiliency and just simple DR planning. Obviously DR is an important part of business resilience, but it's just one aspect of that. And so, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail of what we believe anyway that you need to have in place to help meet those demands. Not having the time, well, I think we can all be guilty of saying that we don't have time for a particular issue to deal with, and business resilience, or that whole planning aspect is certainly part of that, where you could actually argue that I already have that already in place and that I've already spent the time on that. But I think also the last 6 months has shown that actually you do need to plan and test, and also that my employees can already work remotely. And again, we touched upon the fact that it's large purchases, bulk purchases of laptops and so on. Probably just having to leverage that existing VPN connectivity and so on. And but it's then also the challenge of managing that extended workforce via VPN. One of the issues with VPN access again is making sure that you have all of those attack surfaces minimized, making sure that you're able to manage those endpoints properly, and that's always a challenge even within the corporate environment. And so technologies that can help with business resilience, hyperconverged infrastructure. And obviously we're here to, in part to talk about that. We provide a hyperconverged infrastructure platform, and if we have time at the end of today's session, then we'll give you a quick run through of what that looks like from a management perspective. But one of the key points around HCI is the flexibility of the platform, the fact that it's very easy to deploy and manage. And again, hopefully we'll have time to take a look at that in a bit more detail. VDI infrastructure, being able to deliver a flexible environment or a flexible platform, or have a flexible platform, should I say, that allows you to then deploy and meet your demands of your end users, whether that's deploying full virtual desktops or just access to particular applications. Also incorporating ransomware protection. We just touched upon the fact that you have an extended workforce now working via VPN, for example. Essentially, you're extending your network into other people's environments, making sure that that's then handled properly, and also backup in DR, and obviously with some aspect of cloud as well, whether that be using one of the public clouds or whether that be using a partner's cloud. HCI, so again, we're here to talk a little bit about that. What does that mean though? So at high level, towards that means the incorporation of servers, storage and virtualization, or the hypervisor. I would also add as well the orchestration to that as well. And one aspect we've not really covered here is talking about networking, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. But at a high level, this allows you to combine, or we combine that those discrete elements in the normal virtualization stack, and then provide you with our platform, which is a very easy platform to deploy, manage, and to maintain going forward. So as we like to say, virtualization the HC3 way, or the easy way. On this slide, on the left-hand side, virtualization the old way. We used to lovingly call this part of the spaghetti diagram. For a lot of people, this would look very familiar, where you have multiple hosts, some form of switching fabric, whether that be Ethernet or fiber channel, also storage as well, and then the management of that. And again, that's not, that's not, beyond the wit of man, as it were. We're already, or companies have been doing this for many years, but it does add to the complexity and also the challenge of managing that complexity going forward, especially in these challenging times. With HC3, we've worked very hard on providing a platform that, again, very easy to manage. All of the key aspects are incorporated as that, or as part of that. So again, non-disruptive upgrades being a key part of that, self-healing architecture, and also rapid deployment and also expansion as well. Talking about reacting to changing situations, the HC3 platform is very easy to extend and expand. And some of the four key pillars of the platform around simplicity. Again, talked about that a few times now. Very simple to manage and deploy. I always use the analogy in my demos around cups of tea for most things in life, around measuring time. I can easily deploy a cluster within sort of 5 or 10 minutes. And the initialization process, again, takes less time than it does take me to drink my cup or more likely mug of tea. So again, we talk about easily deploying less than an hour, and what we mean is most likely rack and stack the actual hardware itself. It's delivered as an appliance, so that means that the software is already pre-installed. Very simple configuration process. High availability as well, key part of the platform, and in fact, one of the key premises of the platform is high availability. Also self-healing, we've touched upon that in brief, but the platform is designed to deal with hardware issues. We expect hardware to fail. The system has been designed to actually manage that process. And also, more importantly, systems are designed very well to handle failure of hardware, but what about the introduction of a resource or hardware? And our platform, again, has been designed in a way to make that very simple. And in fact, the administrator doesn't really need to do anything as part of that. Scalability. So again, I've touched upon the fact it's very easy to react to a situation by scaling out. So it's scale out in nature. Also flexible as well, where by that I mean you can add additional resource that you require, rather than having to buy a node that's probably evenly balanced with compute and storage. Then we allow you to add additional compute rather than storage, and vice versa. So again, giving you flexibility there, and also affordability as well. The appliances come with the software pre-installed. There aren't any then additional licenses beyond that. There is no sort of standard enterprise edition. So that you don't get caught out when perhaps you may go beyond a particular threshold of 3 hosts, for example. As you scale out, the costs stay linear in that respect. So the why and how of HC3, again, covered a lot of these aspects, and you'll see that we keep coming back to a lot of these points, especially around simplicity and rapid deployment. It depends on the size of your organization, but even for small organizations, having a platform that's easy to deploy, and also that you know how long it's going to deploy, is important. Time is money at the end of the day. And that also extends out to larger enterprises as well. As you have more sites, then actually that becomes even more important. The fact that actually you've got a process that's defined, how long it's going to take to deploy. And you only need to buy what you need today as well. And I think that's something that still gets often forgot actually with the scale out platforms, is that you don't necessarily have to right size. You don't have to then plan 5 years down the line, because again, in some respects, how can you? And so our platform, again, scale out in nature has been designed to account for that. So you don't necessarily need to buy additional resource that may not sit there and not do an awful lot for 2 or 3 years. And so I think that's something that we often forget. And also, as you'll see in the demo, there is no certification required. There is no lengthy training courses. When we're on customer calls, there's quite a lot around the fact that there are many lengthy training courses, and even universities with some other vendors. And with our platform, you just don't have that overhead. I'm going to call you out here, Jaco. Even a sales guy is able to manage our platform, or someone who's non-technical, should I say, rather than sales. So,
yeah, well, if you think about it, I mean, look at one of our competitors. They've got about 148 certifications.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at about an average about $200 per certification, and not every engineer would get to that level where they certified to the to the highest certification within that category. Now, the problem then stems is when you do have that lack of skill or that lack of training, usually what ends up happening is you'd have the people then invest heavily in expensive consultant fees to all of that. So when you compare it to something like scale computing, I mean, we've got a 1-hour training video online or technical certification. It's a few bundle of quizzes, really easy to manage, really easy to set up. I mean, you can master this environment or interface in a couple of minutes. And as hopefully Ian will be able to show later with his demo, you know, after a short introduction from a demo, you'd basically get the crux of the interface and you'd be able to create your virtual machines. And what you see is what you get. And that's kind of all it is, all that it is with scale computing. I mean, it's so simple, and it's really hard to sell simplicity, right? Because everything in IT, in the IT world, when you talk IT, you think complexity, you think specialist, you think, oh well, I need a degree to run this, or I need a specific certification. Now this is where scale computing, and there's a saying, you know, it's complicated it's easy to create complicated software, but complicated to write easy software. I think that's where we kind of fit in, to make it easy for our customers and actually give the IT guys a break and let them focus on the actual applications or, you know, workloads running on top of the infrastructure and less on the actual infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a good point, and especially about expanding. We talked about, you know, being reactive and being able to actually, you know, change your infrastructure or you know, reconfigure your infrastructure to account for different demands and workloads. And that comes back to having the skills and resources available to do that. And going back to that message, you know, business resiliency, that's one key aspect of that. And actually, the concern about you know, redesigning your infrastructure can actually, or you know, adding additional resource to the infrastructure can slow down deployment hugely. And we certainly see this with you know, larger organisations in particular, that actually, you know, that there's lots of hoops to jump through there. And again, with our platform, it's very easy. It's quantifiable. When it comes to, you know, expanding and adding additional resource, for example, and deploying new applications, which is fundamentally what the platform's there to do. It's great talking about what we provide and how we work, but at the end of the day, we're here to run your workloads. And that's a key point. Yeah. Okay, so type of workloads, and in fact, we just touched upon that. You know, what type of workloads can you run on HC3? And in fact, you know, all of the above. You know, our customers are running every type of workload that you can think of, you know, from, you know, the tier 1 database applications, you know, file and print, web services, VoIP as well, you know, AD and so on. Any of the applications and services that you would expect to have to run and support, you know, in your infrastructure, you can run on our platform. You know, we'll talk in a little bit more detail around VDI, for example. But again, you know, any application that you want to deploy in a virtual environment, you can deploy on HC3. And also, you know, built-in, you know, backup and disaster recovery features. You know, so our data protection features, as we like to call them, or data protection suite. So, and I'll show this in the demo. Actually, we have a lot of really key, you know, nice features built into the platform that allows you to recover either an entire VM or just you know, files very easily without the need for third-party software. And I'm not diminishing the requirement for third-party data protection and backup, but what it does mean is you've got more options. And you know, we've all been there when we're trying to recover data. You can never have too many options, and this is all built into the platform. You know, we talk about this is delivered as an appliance. There's only one license, or there isn't any license levels. All of the features are the same range of appliances. And built in, we have HC3 snapshots, instant restore, and again, I'll show what that looks like in a few moments' time. Clustered high availability. So again, no single point of failure, scale out in nature. That means that workloads and access to data are maintained even when we have hardware failures, whether that be disk or node failures. And again, the cluster manages all of those different scenarios. Built-in replication and DR, that's integral to the platform as well. And also you can also replicate to you know, to another DR target as well, or replication target. And also we have the ability to replicate out to the public cloud as well. I mentioned that earlier on at the very start. We'll talk in a little bit more detail about Cloud Unity. And so Cloud Unity is a platform or a solution that runs on the Google Cloud Platform, on the GCE engine. It's really an extension of your on-prem environment, the same management interface, and essentially it's an extension of your on-prem infrastructure into the GCE cloud. So the management interface is the same, incorporates the networking component as well of that, which is a key point. You know, it's running these things in isolation, or these solutions and platforms in isolation, is pretty straightforward. But at the end of the day, you still need to be able to access those resources, and that's actually part of the Cloud Unity solutions. That's a really nice solution as part, part of your sort of your DR strategy, or could be. And we talked about backup as well, and Acronis is one of our key partners. And if you've ever listened to any of the Acronis messaging, they don't necessarily really talk about data backup. They talk about data protection, and the key parts of that is also ransomware protection. So not only relying on your endpoint protection, but also having that built into the data protection suite as well. So ransomware protection, and again, and this is heuristics based, so ransomware protection, archival long-term backup, rapid recovery as well. So you can also, in addition, leverage the built-in data protection features that we have in our Hypercore platform, but also use the Acronis rapid recovery features as well. And also you can recover from anywhere. One of the really nice features is that you can recover to dissimilar environments or dissimilar hardware, whether that be restoring onto other hypervisors, moving other workloads from other hypervisors or other environments onto our platform, or even into the cloud as well. So it has lots of key benefits as well. And also granular recovery, it is application aware. Obviously, you have the ability, obviously indexing and so on. You have the ability to recover mail objects. So if you're still running Exchange on-prem, for example, then Acronis gives you that feature set and ability. And moving on from that, so again, you can use Acronis to back up your HC3 environment. You can then back up locally to a local NAS or even to another HC3 appliance, and then back that up to a remote site, and then also to the cloud. And they have many different options around different public clouds as well as their own. Or you may want to work with one of your partners to deliver that service. So again, key points there: long-term archiving, retention. We have some customers that need to keep data for up to 10 years, for example. So VM level replication may not be the sort of the best way to achieve that. So we'd probably look to leverage some form of backup platform solution such as Acronis to achieve that. And again, we'd be happy to take that offline and talk in more detail. And legacy work from home. So again, moving back to where we are today and what's going on. Exactly the wrong thing to do. So that's quite a strong statement actually about how to go about enabling your workforce, your employees to continue to work. So how can IT reasonably outfit users, and by that means that how can you protect them, how you can make sure they've got the right resources. And also VPN, we touched upon that a few times now, that actually VPNs are obviously pretty commonplace, but also you do need to make sure that you manage them properly. Again, you're extending your network beyond the sort of corporate perimeter, as it were, so you need to make sure that all the risks are understood well there. And ransomware, is a key part of that. And going back to some of the feature set that Acronis provides, ransomware attacks have jumped massively. Which every day in the news, some new ransomware attack or phishing attack, for example. And it isn't just scaremongering. I mean, I'm seeing that on a quite regular basis now on email, certainly much more so than I had done previously. So VDI and scale computing, so all of our partners that we work with to deliver VDI have the same sort of ethos as ourselves. So simplifying deployment, making sure that the partners we work with also have that same desire to deliver a platform that's very simple. but also gives you those key features as well. So again, allows you to deploy new applications quickly, leveraging the benefits of our HCI platform as well. Again, gives you that flexibility and also allow you to the ability to deploy new workloads. It also means that you can support many different connection methods as well. So VDI for all, and we absolutely do mean that. So we have some examples in terms of some of our team running VDI sessions on the fridges, for example. So I'm not saying you necessarily want to do that, but the message you're trying to convey is that you can use many different devices. It doesn't necessarily have to be a laptop. It could be a tablet or so on. And also making sure that that's affordable as well. And we talked earlier on about affordability being one of the key pillars of the platform, key tenants. And that extends to the VDI solutions as well when compared to the traditional VDI plays. What's
wrong with having lunch while you work?
Well, I think that's quite common nowadays, isn't it? And it's that cup of tea or sandwich. Yeah, absolutely. And so remote desktop access, work from anywhere, and at a high level, hopefully this will sort of convey what we mean by that. So with remote workers, we touched upon the fact that might mean that they might be using many different types of devices. But again, it's really simple to deploy VDI on scale. Our partners have sort of a helper appliance installed on the cluster itself that then provides access to resource, even spins new resource up if it isn't available. So it allows you to really quickly deploy new applications and resources out to your team, as it were. And also it means that you retain control of data as well. So actually with VDI, it means that data doesn't leave your corporate environment or your data center. And so, we talk about GDPR, compliance here, and that's what we mean by that, the fact that you retain control and ownership of the data as well. So you're not, giving people access to pull data off of the corporate network, for example. So it really does allow you, to tightly control access to data. So coming back again to the key points of the platform. So again, virtualization, servers and storage, again, networking as well as part of that. We have a platform that's very easy to deploy. And we'll touch upon the different options, but again, very flexible platform. Self-healing, again, we talked earlier about the fact that the platform, other solutions can deal with failure very easily, but what happens when that resource comes back online? So self-healing in nature, we've designed the platform to expect hardware to fail. Disks will fail, memory will fail at some point. We've designed our platform to absolutely, expect that. Intelligent storage pooling, so again, nothing to configure, and we'll touch upon that in the demo in a short while. A very efficient no VSA architecture. Now that may or may not resonate with you. What we have done is really, again, stripped away the complexity even at the fundamental level, and with the storage piece as well, we've really simplified that. And we also talked about the fact that the licensing structure is very simple, i.e. you buy an appliance that has Hypercore installed, there is no third-party licensing required beyond that. So again, we don't incorporate ESXi, for example. Support is a key part of the platform, 24/7 in-house support. Touched upon cloud integration with Google as well, native DR and DR as a service capabilities as well, Acronis. And also, the fact that we don't need any lengthy training courses, so no expertise required in the traditional sense. And again, flexibility. So radically simplified IT. So again, zero to low touch deployment, and we really do mean that. And even when you're deploying very large numbers of sites, we have a solution that means that you can deploy and you can quantify that each time. Again, you can pre-configure or even deploy on site. And we do also have an option where we have a zero touch deployment as well, where essentially you can plug in your devices on site and they will then essentially call home, pull down the configuration, and even pull down workloads as well. And it's a completely integrated platform. So again, it's one management interface to manage all the different aspects of the solution. You don't have a different storage management software, and you don't have then to manage the the hypervisor with a different tool, for example. And also affordability, we've touched upon that a few times now, but that's a key part of the platform, key premise there, is that it's affordable. Highly rated. I think, Yaka, I don't know about you, but I think my sort of go-to is Tech Validator. I forget now how many different case studies are available on there, but I think it's certainly over 500 now. So
yeah,
again,
it's about 600 case studies published.
Yeah, I haven't checked for a while. So again, yeah, we've got plenty of different case studies from many different verticals. So again, great resources there. Tech Validator, also with Trust Radius as well, and obviously Spiceworks, and actually our own partner community as well, and Gartner Peer Insights. So yeah, if you have the time, please take a look and see, rather than taking our word for it, seeing what our customers and partners have to say about the platform. Just to
just to note back on that with regards to Trust Radius, really easy point of reference. If you're working with a customer in a specific industry and you would like some sort of use case or review from a customer, really easy accessible. Just go on one of those Trust Radius and then just look for scale computing. And underneath there, you'll be able to select your category or the industry, and it will just pull up a bunch of references under the that category. Something easy you can use, or conversation starter with your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great resource. And talking about trusted names, well, I won't pull out any of these names directly, but again, you should probably recognise a lot of these customers here. Obviously, McDonald's being one of them, but also Ahold Delhaize as well, which is one of our larger edge customers. So again, we have many different customer types though. So even though we do have very large corporates, large enterprises, we also do support a lot of SMBs. And even with these large corporates, they are essentially still SMBs in essence, certainly when we're dealing with the edge anyway. The requirements on site, and again, many different verticals, whether that be from manufacturing, aerospace, education, for example, finance, amongst many others. And they're all supported and underpinned by our ScaleCare team and support team. It's a really important part of the platform. The platform itself, has support, always been designed with support in mind. And that's right the way through from the installation, how you deal with our support team, with the initial installation, right the way through to even more complex deployments. Our support team can help with switch installation, configuration, migration of workloads, DR planning. So they're not there just to provide support when things go wrong. They're there to really be like you to think of our support team as an extension of your IT team. I forget what the Net Promoter Score is. I think it's probably bubbling around the 90s, and obviously that's in large part down to a very reliable platform, but also it's in large part down to our excellent support team as well. And as part of that, we've won many awards as well. And again, obviously the awards season won't be quite the same with COVID, but again, you can go online and see the different awards we've won over the years with HC3. And we touched upon different options, and we encourage you to get in touch with us directly, whichever region you're in. We have a very flexible platform, lots of different hardware offerings to meet certain requirements. Right the way through from the HE150, so you may have seen that, or quite a lot of noise around that in the press. We talked about a very efficient stack. In fact, we don't have a VSA approach. We use very limited resource. We're talking between 2 and 6 gig of RAM. And again, we then don't demand the resources required of the virtual appliance either. That's why we're able to deploy on something as small as a HE150, which is essentially an Intel NUC, right the way through to 2U multi-socket, multi-drive system. So the point is that we have many different options to meet your requirements. Yaka, I don't know if you've got anything else to add there before I jump into the demo.
No, I think you basically covered the most of it. You did mention the NVMe boxes, the all-flash
Yeah, the
NVMe systems.
3250. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't really cover that, but yeah, I mean, we still even have all spinning disk actually. So you can go from spinning disk hybrid, all flash and all NVMe systems. We obviously have many different networking options as well, you know, right the way from 1 gig through to 25 gig. So there's lots of different options there to meet certain requirements, and we do work very closely with our partners and customers to make sure that you know the solution meets your requirements. We encourage dialogue there, encourage you to talk to us and come and sort of explain and what you want from your platform and what you want from the platform and what your concerns are with your current infrastructure, and then we'll help you design a solution that will fit your needs now and going forwards as well.
Yeah, and also to note that when it comes to VDI workloads, we do have the ability to provide GPUs, something that we can start a discussion with, see how it can fit into your environment.
Yeah.
Because I believe that, the aspect of VDI is a really big concern when it comes to GPUs, especially when there's specific graphics oriented workloads or applications on those VDI desktops.
Sure. Yeah.
We do have the ability of or the flexibility to provide something in that direction as well to make sure that it's the utmost or the best experience possible.
Yeah, and in fact, this slide should be will be updated very soon. But to just give you sort of an overview, we have a couple of new platforms, starting with 2 GPUs, so moving up to 5 GPUs. So again, we have a lot of flexibility as well there to meet even relatively small environments, obviously, then scaling out as well. Yeah, good point. Right, okay, so I'm going to attempt to switch gears and to share my web browser. Let me have a go. So there you go. Hopefully you can see that on the screen.
And it works at ludicrous speed.
Okay. Yeah, that's I like the pun there, and you've also reminded me to touch upon a feature that I often gloss over nowadays. But yes, so hopefully you can see my web browser open on the screen. And in fact, I'm sort of almost excited actually today that I've got an update available. I can't normally talk about updates. We talk about rolling upgrades, but then have nothing to show. But actually, I've logged into a cluster today that actually shows an update available. So, but yeah, so just start at the very top. So it's a web browser-based interface. We've touched upon the fact that it's very easy to deploy. You only need to really get your monitor and keyboard out if you're not using our zero-touch deployment. You need that monitor and keyboard for the initial configuration. And there's only 2 IP addresses that you need to configure per node. And you have a LAN IP address. You can see here in the head-up display, we have our management IP address here. We also have a backplane IP address as well. And once you've configured that, initialized the cluster, had the cup of tea, you log straight into this interface. And this is where you then live when you're managing our platform. And see here that I've got notices appearing here. This is a live system. So at the very top here, we have our head-up display. So as soon as you log into the system, you then understand what's going on at a glance. You can see we have the gas gauges here that give you cluster-wide information. Most importantly, though, we actually provide any information on the health of the cluster as well, and we separate that out. So again, as soon as you log into the cluster, you understand what's going on straight away, actually, and that's really important, rather than expecting you to wade through lots of event logs. As soon as you log in the head-up display here, you see that we've actually separated those notices out there for you. And then we have a node view here as well in the head-up display that gives you a graphical representation of what's running where from a compute perspective. You also can switch between the RAM and disk view as well. So again, if you want to look at disk utilization, more likely typically going to look at this if you have a disk failure, then you would simply just come into the interface, go to the head-up display, switch to the disk view, and then you could then presented with a view of the disks, and you know which disk could fail. Beyond that, then you can also see we have the VM card view, and again, you'll probably see that actually we have the similar gas gauges as well, giving you an overview of resources being used by the VM. But I'll come back to that in a few moments, and I'll use Yakko as an example, as I happen to do quite a lot. But from a setup point of view, very limited one-time configuration, very easy to configure. I think it's easy to set up with my own home broadband. You only have to tell the cluster a little bit about the environment it lives in, DNS, set up email alerts, for example, so it can configure email settings. So not only will you get a visual alert when you log in to the cluster, you also get an email as well if the health of the cluster changes. From there, you would then probably want to upload some ISOs. So again, you can see that we actually have some ISOs already pre-installed or uploaded to many different operating systems here. And from there, I can actually start to create virtual machines. I don't need to worry about storage management. Touched upon the fact we simplified the stack. There are no iSCSI targets or LUNs to set up and configure. No data stores, cluster shared volumes, VMDKs, VHDs. They don't exist in our platform in the traditional sense. And it's not just because we've hidden those elements. We've actually eliminated them. And again, if you want to, arrange a one-on-one, session with the sales, we're more than happy to go into more detail around that. But needless to say, it isn't just cosmetic. We've made fundamental changes to the way that we would normally approach traditional infrastructure. So going back to the case in hand, we've uploaded some ISOs. I may then want to configure the data protection schedule, and in fact, there, as luck would have it, Jako's already got a data protection schedule building on our snapshot technology. We already have a few different reoccurrence rules defined here. Not sure these would exactly be ones that I would recommend, but anyway, for demo purposes, I can define my own reoccurrence rules, my own data protection schedule. I can even set different retention policies as well, perhaps for more long-term archive. Also set up remote replication as well, and actually you can see that this is one of our product management clusters, or you can see that there's quite a few different clusters I can replicate to. Also want to make the point that actually we don't mean that you have to replicate to a cluster. So that could either be to the Cloud Unity instance that we talked about earlier on with Google, but also could be to a single node appliance as well. So we also do talk, when we're talking about clusters, we're either talking about a single node appliance or a 3-node cluster or above if you want something that's highly available. And at that point, we can then jump in and start creating VMs. But as we have an update available, I'm going to come back to that. So if you go to the update view here, and you'd also be alerted to the fact there's an update available. You can come into the interface here. Sometimes we actually provide more information. But the key point is that if it appears in the interface, then you can rest assured that it's been thoroughly tested. And in the case of a cluster, when I apply the update, it's completely non-disruptive. It's a rolling upgrade. So by that, I mean that we actually manage that whole process. You don't need to put a node into maintenance mode. You don't have to evacuate the VMs off a node. We actually manage all of that. So it's a single click, almost click and forget from an upgrade point of view. And also remember that means that there is no downtime from the workload's point of view. Your applications are up and running through the entirety of the upgrade or update process. And remote support as well, we may as well take a look at that. We talked about our Net Promoter Score. We talked about our support team and the excellent support that you get from the Scale team. But and also, it's very easy to provide that as well. And if you get in touch with our support team, and they then deem it necessary to provide on-site assistance or remote assistance, should I say, with the cluster, then they will simply give you a support code. Pop that into the interface, open the connection, and that opens an outbound SSH tunnel to our support team. They would do what they need to do, and then then you'll be able to close the tunnel. And I think the key point here is that you retain control of that. We can't open that tunnel manually or remotely. You've got to do that, and that means that you retain complete control and access there. Okay, so let's create a VM, and Jako, as usual, I'm going to be picking on you. You can see that we already have few different VMs already created in your name here, so I'm going to create a group for you as well. I'm going to create the Jako group. Tags are really useful, especially when we're managing large numbers of VMs. DC group as well, so I'm going to create Jako domain controller. I'm going to stick with Windows and performance drivers for this example, but I will just change the default resource here. So I'm going to give that particular VM 16 gig of RAM, and let's add in a few virtual disks. And I'm going to select an OS, and in this case, I'm going to select Server 2019. So there we go. I've now created Yakko's VM. So I'm going to switch gears, and then we can see that Yakko's VM is just spinning up now, or just being configured, should I say. Let's give that a few moments and see that that's now completed. And then also going to protect Yakko's workload. So again, I'm going to apply Yakko's snapshot schedule. And then I'm going to set up replication as well. So let me just select the India HQ cluster. So you can see within a few seconds, we've created a VM, protected it locally, and also configured DR and replication. And again, I've not missed out any steps. You know, this is a live environment. You can see there's many different workloads running on there. And then at that point, I can simply spin the VM up. Now, you might say sort of, so what? You know, I mean, of course, it's only going to take a few moments to create that VM, but let's take a look here, and I'm pretty sure we've got some templates on this cluster. There we go, we have got a few templates. Not a lot of data, but still some data, and probably is more representative of that VM. So let me just clone that VM here, and I'm going to put this into the, I'll say Yakko daily, I'll say Yakko DC, or difficult type. There we go. Remove that from the template group, pop that into the Yakko group there. There we go. And then clone that system. And then I'm just going to take a step back, and let's go back to the Yakko group. You can see that in a few moments that'll be available. So in the meantime, actually, we can see now Yakko's VM has just spun up. And in fact, there you go. You can see that actually we've just cloned a VM. We had real data there. Again, only took a few seconds there. So you would typically deploy from a template. In the case of Windows, most likely be sys prepped. If we then take a look at Yakko's VM, that's now spun up. We now look at the snapshot view there, then we can already see that there will be snapshots taking place, and see here that we've only got the one snapshot available currently based against that schedule. I can then clone that entire VM, so the same process that we've just seen there when I'm cloning and accessing that template. But also, if you notice, I've got another option here as well, and I can actually then expand that snapshot, take a look at actually individual virtual disks, and I can actually recover a virtual disk in real time live to another system, or in fact to the same system actually if I wanted to. So if I really wanted to recover a file, I don't need to actually access or clone the entire VM. I can actually then just mount that individual virtual disk, pull off the data and disconnect it. So giving you that sort of file level recovery. And also if I take a look here, that I can see that I'm replicating across the India HQ cluster. I'll just switch over to the cluster here, and Yakko's VM may have turned up, and in fact there we go. Yakko's VM is now available. So you can see that in the DR scenario, if you can imagine that we have a snapshot history, I could then go to that point in time, either, again, just pull off data if I wanted to, or recover the entire VM in a DR scenario. And you can see that this is all in real time. I'm not missing out any steps. Again, very simple. Okay, so at this point, I would normally ask the floor for any questions, but as Yakko would always remind me, I've missed out one aspect of the platform, and we've touched upon the storage stack, which is called Scribe. We've touched upon its key features, how efficient it is. We've seen and we've interacted with it by creating a VM, cloning and taking a snapshot, for example, of a VM. Also, we can actually change some of its performance characteristics as well, or how it manages data. So if I go to Yakko's VM, I can actually go to the More option. And you notice here that we have the heap priority slider. And you may not have noticed, but earlier on when we looked at the disk view, you would have seen that we have a combination of spinning disk and SSD. And so that's what we deem or call a hybrid node type. And as part of that, we have auto tiering, and you can actually change that auto tiering behavior here. By default, it's set to 4, so the system would generate a heat map of each virtual disk. And I think we would look at the last sort of million IOs for a particular virtual disk, heat map based on that, and then tier the data accordingly. Can change that behavior though, so I can actually turn tiering off. So in this instance, any data would then be written only to the spinning disk tier. But then again, anything above 0 then starts to use that auto tiering technology. We like to think we have a sense of humour here at Scale. So again, Yakko always likes me to cover this off. I think ludicrous speed is still my personal favourite. again, if anyone knows which movies these are from, then perhaps drop an email or drop the answer in the chat. And also these go to 11 as well. So again, another movie reference. But the serious point, though, that means that you retain or actually have complete control over the data placement. And in this case, that means that any new data will be only written to the SSD tier. So if you want to guarantee the best performance, then you may want to set that particular virtual disk to 11. Great. Okay. So I think we're sort of fast approaching the top of the hour now. Actually, I think we've sort of got sort of 8 minutes to go. So I don't know if there's any questions come in, but again, we'll get back to everybody on any of those questions coming in. If you have any subsequent questions, then please, get in touch with the team here at Scale. Jaco, I don't know if you've got any particular words that you'd like to add, and if there's anything you want to say also in particular about your region.
Well, I think you mostly covered everything. Like Ian said, I see Ian. I see there's a couple of people in my region mostly. So if you guys need any additional information, please feel free to contact me, pop me an email. I'm always available, always willing to help you guys, and I'll pull Ian in and we will look at any scenario that you might have or opportunity. And we'll hold your hand during the whole process and help you guys close the opportunity end to end. And I think that's it from my side. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And Ian, thank you so much for this insightful presentation. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. And again, thank you for everybody for joining again. Especially Jaco, thanks for jumping on as well.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Anyway, have a good afternoon. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.